So my name is Drew Geis. I'm a director here in our product marketing group, and I have the pleasure today of introducing two different of our insurance customers to speak with you. The first is going to be Transamerica, and then we're going to hear from the Northwestern Mutual team. So first, I want to welcome to the stage Brad Norton, who is the Director of Business Planning at Transamerica Retirement Services, where he's been for the last 8 years, the last 4 of which he's been working on DocuSign. His background includes 11 years in the financial services industry and CRM process development and business analytics and forecasting. So very happy to have you here. Brad, come on up. Let's give him a round of applause.
Sounds good. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As Drew mentioned, I'm from Transamerica, and this is a good session because the two groups that are presenting here today really go hand in hand. You're going to hear, you're going to hear my friends from Northwestern Mutual cover some of the decision making that leads into how to choose DocuSign, what went into their thought processes, and then what I'm going to cover is more of post-implementation, some of the observations that we made, and some of the best practices, and some fun stats too. So I'll get started. First, Transamerica. So as Drew mentioned, we're insurance, but the group that I work in is primarily involved in the retirement group. So we've got 27 million customers, 4 million of whom are 401k, 403b participants, and those are the individuals that we talk to every year. So we talk to about 112,000 people on average every year, and we end up initiating new business with about 15% of those people, so 16,500 on average. And of that, in the, I'll call it DocuSign era that we've had over the past 4 years, about 90% of them, of the people that we initiate business with, actually close business. And that's the 14,500. All of this we're doing with about 45 captive phone-based agents. And so in 2011, we decided that with the business that we saw coming down the pipe and with the feedback that we were getting from Net Promoter Scores, that we needed to do a couple of different things because we had poor return percentage of our outstanding business, so 67% represented by that top line. We needed to implement something that was sustainable, that we could drive a better customer experience with. Our Net Promoter Scores were coming back, and the feedback that we were getting is that we were hard to do business with. The reason that happened, Transamerica participants in a 401k moving to a Transamerica IRA didn't feel that there should be a copious amount of paperwork that needed to happen there. So we needed to kind of simulate a digital switch from one account into another one. And that's where DocuSign kind of came into the fray. Likewise, we needed to by improving that consumer experience, we also wanted to make sure that we did not compromise or make more difficult our user experience. So our advisors needed to have an enhanced experience as well. So when we got started in 2011, we got started in 2012, but in 2011, we were at 67% of the paperwork that we were sending out was coming back. We got started in the fourth quarter of 2012, and we had some good user adoption. Wasn't great, but we were late in the year. But we saw enough of an uptick to improve our paperwork return percentage from 67 to 71%, and then our first full year after that, in 2013, we cruised up to 87%, and we've kind of planed out. So this represents all of the outstanding paperwork that we're doing, all of the outstanding business paperwork. The DocuSign kit return percentage that lives underneath that is actually closer to about 92%. And then you can also see there in that second line, our conversion improved, but so was our business. So then the next thing is this is showing a snapshot of how many days it takes for people to return their outstanding business paperwork to us. So the top line represents, really, in 2011, everything that we were doing was either mail or email, and it took about 10, 11 days for people on average. Of the people returning their paperwork to us, it took about 10 or 11 days for us to close that business. In 2012, when we started to send DocuSign, right off the bat, it was about 4 days, and then we've kind of planed off to about 2 or 3 days ever since then. And one of the interesting things that you'll notice there too is in as time has gone by, our paperwork return rate has actually improved as well. We attribute that to the fact that the right people, albeit a smaller segment of people now, but the right people are actually getting physical paperwork. It's the people that actually want to receive paperwork that way, and so they're returning it. The rest of the population is using DocuSign, and it takes 2 or 3 days. Most of it comes back in the same day, or we see a lot of stuff come back on Saturdays. So some interesting numbers. In 2011, we were at 100% paper. And the reason I say that, even though we were sending stuff via email, and even though we were still sending stuff via FedEx, what we still had to do from a processing standpoint is when paperwork came back, even if it was digital, we still had to print it out. And then we had to send it off to a workflow system in order to process it. Likewise, a consumer gets the paperwork. They had to print it out themselves, sign it, either fax it back, mail it back, image it back. It's messy, and it's a lot of printing, it's a lot of paper. We're now down to 15% of the cases now involve some form of paper. About half of that is those people I mentioned before where they prefer to receive physical paperwork, and the other half is products that don't support DocuSign yet. And I'll emphasize yet. We're working on that. The next thing, down 75%. So in our first full year of DocuSign, the numbers matched. We had a 75% reduction in the amount of paper that we were using, 75% reduction in the amount of money that we were spending on supplying our customers with paperwork, or with business applications. And an interesting stat to kind of couple with that as well. In 2015, we used about 2/3 of the amount of paper that we did in 2011, but we did 6.5 times the amount of business. So if you kind of put those two pieces together and say, what would we have had to do? First of all, I believe that we wouldn't have had that much to print because we wouldn't have been doing that much business. People really like using DocuSign, but the cost savings there and the amount of paper and shipping that we got to reduce really made an impact to our bottom line. And then also, I mentioned FTE on here. We had 4 full-time people in 2011 who were committed to sitting in a room, receiving faxes, receiving emails, printing stuff out, making sure that assistants could make call-outs to people that fax stuff upside down or omitted stuff, all that kind of stuff that causes NIGO and drives compliance departments crazy. That's what they were doing. Now, in 2015, we've got 2 people that do that, but like I said, 6.5 times the amount of business. So we really got to mitigate the growth that we had to put in that sort of a role. A few additional benefits of DocuSign that we've noticed. I mentioned compliance. They fought us tooth and nail in 2012 when we said that we were going to look to find a digital solution for electronic signature. They were scared of it. It was electronic, it was bad, and they didn't want anything to do with it. So we forced them to sit down at a table with us. DocuSign was really instrumental in providing insight and sitting at that table with us. We got legal in there. We got them to a level of comfort. And a month after we implemented, compliance is right back at the table with us, asking us how we could propagate DocuSign into more areas of the business because they now loved it. And they would never admit that they were wrong. It was their idea, of course, but they love the fact that it locks stuff down. It reduces and almost eliminated NIGO. The only NIGOs that we really encounter from a DocuSign perspective is we filled something out wrong. And also secure delivery, which they absolutely love. So they are big fans, which makes our lives easier. Also integration development. So one of the things that DocuSign is very, very good at, regardless of the size of your operation, they have the ability to help you to use their tools, use their resources in such a way so that fits your business. So we actually used a lot of their API capability, built DocuSign directly into our CRM. So our users don't really even see DocuSign. They collect the data that they would normally collect, and when it comes time to initiate a new business instance, they're pressing a button. It's asking them how they want, is this the email you want to use? Is it the code that you want to use? And then it just pushes that stuff into DocuSign. Their assistants will go into DocuSign and use the outstanding kit work to decide, who needs to be called, who's still got outstanding paperwork. But the primary users, our advisors, our producers, are not having to see that. And then finally, I think the biggest thing that everybody is always thinking about is the customers. Customers love it. We've evidenced that in our NPS. So we do NPS survey work by segment of business. So whether it's people that we're prospecting with, whether it's people that we're onboarding and actually creating a customer, and then beyond that. But onboarding was one of our weakest segments in 2011, and now is by far our strongest. Nearly all of that we attribute to the implementation of DocuSign. So we're at a 53 for our onboarding, and you can see some of the, maybe you can see that. You can see some of the things that our customers have said about it, but overwhelmingly satisfied, an overwhelming amount of people that think that we're very, very easy to do business with, which was our primary goal. And then everything else that happened after that was good for business as well, but our customers kind of support what we're doing the best. A couple things that I'll leave with are some observations that we made throughout the whole process. If you are considering DocuSign or on the early stages, working with your Center of Excellence for DocuSign, working with your IT groups, and certainly your procurement to ensure that if there's other segments of the business that are using DocuSign already, that you get to enjoy that enterprise scenario, but also there are people there that already have pieces of development work that they've done. They've got best practices that they can share. Also, always keep the client perspective into account, and also don't forget your users as well. So you're thinking about the business, you're thinking about your clients, don't forget the people that are going to do this. Identify champions, identify your early adopters, and if you've got mavens within your organization who people follow and they trust, make sure that those are the people that you kind of bring into the decision-making process in order to ensure that they're going to properly deliver the message. And then finally, utilize the resources that DocuSign provides. Whether it's just a little bit or a lot. I have not talked to a single person and I've been coming to this conference for 4 years. I have not talked to a single person who utilizes some of those services, even the paid services, who does not believe wholeheartedly that the return on investment is not met. So that's my segment. I'm going to turn it over to my friends from Northwestern Mutual, or actually to you, Andy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brad. I just want to give the Northwestern Mutual team a quick introduction before they come up here. So we're going to have two folks, Jeff and Keri. Jeff currently serves as the technology team lead for the Shared Capabilities Division, and Keri is the e-signature application engineer for DocuSign. So come on up. I'm going to hand you this clicker. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. Well, thanks. Well, welcome. As Drew said, I'm Jeff, this is Keri, and really we're on the e-signature support team, and so we do all of the day-to-day technical support. And the presentation, like Brad said, it's really around the decisions that Northwestern Mutual made as we introduced e-signature into the organization, as well as the decisions we made since then as we continue to enhance and support it. Real quick though, a little background as to who we are. Northwestern Mutual, or NM as we refer to ourselves, we're another one of those financial security and planning services. We do this through a variety of insurance and investment products. Next year we'll be in business for 160 years, and having started out in insurance, longevity is something we take great pride in. So excited about that. We're from the Midwest. We're on the top end of the Fortune 500. The biggest thing I want to point out here is we are the largest direct provider of life insurance in the U.S. Last year we paid $5.5 billion in dividends to those that own our policies. We're consistently ranked the top 10 broker-dealer, and we sell all of our products through a captive sales force. So now to give you a little more deeper dive into how we use DocuSign and how we got started in the first place, I'll turn it over to Keri.
Okay, so today we have many different business areas utilizing e-signature across the enterprise. Some of these include new issue and servicing, Salesforce contracting, as well as personal investments, which is currently in pilot mode right now. In 2015, we sent over 50,000 envelopes. Although this number might seem like it's a lot, it was really only 5% of the requests we had coming in. Another thing is we have 85% of our forms right now that are e-sign capable. And by the end of 2016, we are hoping to have all of our new issue and servicing forms e-signed enabled. On an interesting note, half of the applications with the new issue are e-signed, and that was only started last summer. So just how far we've come in that little time. From a DocuSign perspective, for authentication, we use both phone and the custom SAML authentication. With a custom SAML authentication, what happens is they click the link and DocuSign actually routes the signer back to NM's own sign-on page, where they then in turn log in and NM provides a thumbs up or down if they've authenticated or not. We're also utilizing SOAP API to connect with our internal applications. All of our calls are going through the API, and we use DocuSign Connect then to get those envelope statuses, and also we bring those envelopes back and store them in-house on the content management system. Something else that we also take advantage is the customer success architects, as well as the Premier Support and the TCSM, or the Technical Customer Success Manager, and we've had great experience with those both. And we don't have in-person signing yet, but that is definitely something we'd like to see in the future. So now that you kind of have an idea of where we're at today, I'd like to take you back to some of the key decisions that we made in the beginning of implementing e-signature. We started implementation back in 2013 to create efficiencies and improve customer experience. Now it's almost seen as more of a must-have, like an email address or a phone number. In short, it's something that the customers have come to expect. So one of the first key decisions that we made was seeing e-signature as an enterprise capability at Northwestern. So what this meant was, at an enterprise level, we wanted everything to go through that one account. So what happened is, even though we wanted to see it in an enterprise level, we also wanted to start small as we possibly could. So our first form was one of our servicing forms, which was a single form application only having one signer. This allowed us to make sure that everything was done right before moving it out to the sales force. And it also allowed us to, at first, only let our home office call center have this. And in turn, then, we had more control. And if there was anything that we needed to fix, like a UI or processing issue, that would be easy to do. And having it on the servicing side also made sure that initially it was current customers and you weren't affecting any new sales. Another one of the key decisions of seeing it as an enterprise-wide application was to only have that one production DocuSign account. This lends a hand to providing that consistent look and feel for the Northwestern Mutual e-signature experience. Another thing about having the one DocuSign account is that it makes it a lot easier to do things like production checkouts or any of the settings in the DocuSign console. You're only having to do one checkout each time. Another thing with seeing it as an enterprise-wide application is that we rely heavily on the API usage. We make sure we have integrated with our homegrown applications. And this allows us to have customers or users work with applications that they're already familiar with. So instead of having a whole new tool, it's something they're already familiar with, and instead of checking email address or mail, they now select e-signature. We also added new issue forms in late 2015, and investments accounts is still in process, like I was saying in the previous slide. Some of the results we've seen are we've completely related or signature related NIGO are not in good order. Another thing we've noticed is we see a lot higher return rate. We see 15% more forms come back through e-signature than those that are paper, emailed, or faxed. We also are seeing over half of the e-signature applications or forms come back within the same day, where we're only seeing a quarter of that in the paper world. And realize that this number isn't just compared to snail mail, it's also compared against faxes and emails. Another thing we've noticed is there's some cost savings on things such as the postage and paper and envelopes, and also the time of dealing with it. You have a lot less time in the digital format than you would in the paper. And the sales force has also noticed that they get their commissions paid a lot faster, which I think is a lot of the reason that we were seeing such high usage and new issue.
So we've seen some initial good results, but really the long-term success of this depends on how well we continue to enhance it and support it. And one of the key decisions that NM made around that was really to split the delivery of e-signature functionality from the support of e-signature. So we have two separate teams working within this technology. The support team does a lot of the defect identification and resolution, environment triages, and are primarily engaged with DocuSign's TCSMs. On the delivery side, their main goal is to crank out new functionality and get new use cases in. They do use the Scrum methodology, and they're primarily engaged with DocuSign's CSAs. And without sounding too much like a commercial, Brad and I talked about this last night. Those CSAs that's a great value proposition. We made a lot of headway with them that we weren't prior. So highly recommend that. Having these two teams really allows that delivery team to focus in on cranking out new functionality, and they get extremely good at doing that. They aren't bogged down with production issues because the support team is taking care of those things. And it also helps us with that maintain that consistent look and feel, because primarily the same team is doing about 95% of the code changes. Another decision we made, this was quite a few years back, but it's paying dividends for us now, is NM took a really strong approach, an enterprise-wide approach in maturing the support processes that we have today now. One of those things is a tiered support structure. Our tier one is our call center, and our customers, our sales force, and our home office employees all call into primarily the same call center. And those folks there answer the phones, take down what the issue is, and they also attempt some first call resolution with some step-by-step self-help docs. If they can't take care of the issue there, they create an incident, and that goes to our tier two. Tier two is kind of that business consultant team. They have a very good knowledge of the business processes, little more technical knowledge, but not a whole lot more. They're really there to take care of those how-to questions. And if they can't resolve it, then it comes to our team as the tier three technical support. Along with this mature support process, prioritization of incidents happens at an enterprise level. And when you're supporting an enterprise app, that's great, right? So only the most wide sweeping, highest business impact issues are what we call a P1 or a priority one. When those occur, right away we get a couple conference calls going. The one to note is a technical bridge call. We get representatives on from all of our infrastructure teams, whether they know they're involved or not. They will jump on the call, as well as a pretty good wide sweeping representation from our app support teams. And that call will go 24/7 until the incident is resolved. And we do engage DocuSign on those calls. They will hop on those calls and help us out. So that's been good. Another decision that we made was around the funding of e-signature. We have decided to take a product-funded approach versus a project-funded approach. And what this means really is that we've seen some good results from e-signature. We know that we've got a lot more work that we can do, and we want to do that. And so we're throwing money right at the product itself versus relying on various different business departments saying, hey, here's some funds, I want you to help me out now. And here's some funds from this department, I want you to help me out now. And that model really kind of dictates what your priority is, right? Because you have to go wherever the money is. And so to get away from that and to have this one team focusing on, okay, from an enterprise-wide perspective, what is the highest business value we can deliver this year, this month, this week, whatever it is. And we know we have the funds and the support to do that. It also allows that team to have more of a strategic approach. So they might implement a lot more foundation work that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do if we were only getting bits and pieces of funding from different departments. Not all the decisions have been great, and thus brings up the challenges. User authentication has been one of those challenges for us. Northwestern Mutual requires only one particular authentication method for our customers. What we were trying to do, and Keri kind of hit on this, that we got this custom SAML authentication where we take the authentication back in-house. So DocuSign sends our users back to us to authenticate. And how they're doing that is we forced them to sign up for an account with us. And we were hoping that e-signature would kind of be that carrot out there to kind of get them to sign up for an online account. There's a lot more other things that we'd like them to explore with that account. And we found that e-signature is not quite a big enough carrot. So if they don't know other advantages to having that account with us, they aren't as likely to sign up. And that, quite frankly, affects how many e-signatures we get back. So that's something that we need to work on. I think the takeaway here is provide as many options to your signers as you can in how they authenticate. And that's something that we're working through this year. The next thing, it's not necessarily a decision, and I think it's more of a progression on where we are now that we've been doing this for a couple of years, is we found, especially our sales force, and especially now that we have our new applications out there, they want very detailed statuses as to who has signed, what they've done, where is their life insurance app or their investment account set up, because again, they get paid once that thing goes through, right? So currently, our statuses basically reflect what our paper process is. So they know when the request got sent out the door, and they don't know what's going on until it comes back in. And they know that there's a lot of technology behind this. They know that they should be able to get more detailed reports on where that document is throughout that. So that's something that we're also looking into doing for this year. And that's also going to cut down a lot, I think, on the calls we get. There's a lot of times we'll get a call from our sales force that says, look, my client says they signed. Well, then we have to go in, take a look. No, they really haven't yet. Get back to them. That whole call, all the time it takes to get that ticket down to tier 3 and back up would all be saved. So we've done some really good decisions or made some good ones, I feel. We missed the boat on a few. But we really wanted to share those decisions that we made with you so that as you start or continue on your digital transformation, that you'll take these into account and hopefully do a better job than us, even though we feel pretty proud about it. So at this time, I think we're going to do some questions and answers. Cool.
Give them a round of applause first.
Okay.
Join them on stage. So we're going to open up for Q&A right now. Share that mic with Keri.
Yeah.
Tell you what, why don't you head over there?
For the Northwestern Mutual folks, you guys mentioned that if you're not doing in-person signing, have you guys started thinking about how you're going to do that, or is it just something you want to do someday? What challenges you might if you start thinking about it?
We have started to think about it. Andy, do you have any? We actually have one of the guys who is thinking about it.
Take a sidebar.
Sure. Yeah. I'll hook you up with him. I'm not privy to what those thoughts are. So.
This is Brad. What was your biggest compliance challenge?
Yeah, in terms of what we encountered or what they anticipated? Our biggest compliance challenge was compliance. Once we got past that hurdle, the biggest challenge from a compliance perspective that we encountered was all of the contracts. So we've got Transamerica has tons of different contracts, and so in order to use this, we had to go to plan administration and really get representation to allow us to use the technology with people who had signed privacy agreements. So we needed to kind of discover all of those different pieces. Once we actually got to the point where we're like, all right, we can use this, there wasn't anything that was a headache at all.
How much in your applications, how much of DocuSign do they see, or is that total experience within your application?
For us, we left DocuSign. They see it when they sign in through the login. They know that it's DocuSign, but all the places where DocuSign is allowed for us to insert our own branding, it's there. So they see Transamerica first, but they know that they're in a DocuSign environment.
Yeah, and I would say for us, the whole requesting and sending of those documents, that's all done within our own apps. And the only time DocuSign really shows up would be just a little bit in the email invitation to sign, and then when they actually sign in, they might recognize that it's DocuSign, but
Come back to your portal
after they're done,
in that, or
they're technically signing in DocuSign, but we try to seamlessly integrate that as much as we can to try to hide that. We don't want to have them be concerned about the fact that, wait a second, I thought I was doing business with NM, and now all of a sudden I see this other brand here, what's going on? So that's why we tried to limit that as much as we could.
We learned from that as well too. So one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that they understood up front, you're going to be using DocuSign, which is a technology that that we're partnered with here. So they see that up front. We almost explain it. But then to answer your other question too, at the very end of that process, we dump them to Transamerica, their Transamerica login.
do your reps see how many documents were sent for signing, how many are pending?
Yeah,
See all that within your app?
so if they sign into their DocuSign portal, they can see their stats, and we built we utilize a couple of the boxed reports, but we scoop all of that data on a daily basis, and we use Salesforce. So they're in Salesforce, and we use all that comes into a central warehouse. We use a Tableau visualization, and they can see all their stats, drill into them, see what they've sent paper, what they've seen DocuSign, and so DocuSign really provides a nice process to allow all that data to be used, and we consume it how we want to.
Around one of your slides shows went from 100% paper to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could help understand what else, or what helped drive
Yep.
And then the other is, how much of your work goes through advisors, or is most of it direct to client, and you had to change that through this process?
So I'll answer your second question first, because that one's probably easier. So all of our advisors are captive, so they're all working in our phone banks. So that makes answering the second question a little bit easier too. Adoption was pretty simple from the standpoint, and Jeff hit on a point too. When actually I think it was you, Keri. They're getting paid quicker because the business is quicker, and the clients that we're working with like that process quite a bit more. Really, the only people that don't like it are that handful of people that are like, well, I don't have a computer. Well, we can still do business with you, but everybody else really expects that this is going to kind of be, we built it in such a way where you don't really even feel the paperwork aspect of it. You're kind of going through it, and then yes, I need to sign. So you kind of break into this little thing, but you never have to print anything out, and that's really how we present it that way. That it's digital, but that there's just this one part that you need to go through that allows for you to sign electronically. So they feel like it's an entirely digital transaction, which it is, but we kind of have to set it up that way to really make the whole process present itself in the way that you need to tell the story that your consumer will be comfortable with. Then in terms of the 100% to 15%, the reason that we said 100% again was because every transaction, even if it was we sent something via email and got back an image, they had to print it, and then we had to print it. So getting down to that 15% part, because we've got 90% of our paperwork now not actually being paperwork, that's how it got to that point. The adoption was pretty swift. There were a couple of internal holdouts that kind of were like-minded with people who were like, I don't have a computer. I think they'd rather not use a computer, but you're gonna always have that. But we've got people now that come into the organization as we add new advisors who, like, you haven't sent a paper kit since you've been here. Yeah, I don't really give people a choice. This is how we do business. And to what degree that limits them, I think it's kind of opened the eyes of other people who are like, well, I still send about 20% because people kind of like it. If other people just don't really even bring it up. So I think that our advisors also get measured on their staged NPS results as well. So because our NPS is so strong with people that are interacting with us digitally, that also creates leverage into that environment.
It's a question I've asked a couple of times. How do you authenticate the end investor or customer that is signing?
How do we do it? So we don't bring that in house. We use there's really two stages, and at Transamerica, different divisions use different stages. We've got one group of people with kind of the more simple set of paperwork, where if I'm dealing with one person and I don't need your spouse or anybody else to sign, we'll set it up where we use the last 4 digits of your social security number. If you don't already have a DocuSign account established. If we're doing more comprehensive paperwork, we use the capabilities where you get to it and you sign in, and it asks you, is one of the addresses that you've lived in the last 10 years, kind of that whole piece. Yep, exactly.
We have time for one more question. Oh, Jeff, do you want to?
Did you want to, for us, if you're a brand new customer, so you have no accounts with us, there would be no reason for you to have an online account. So for those, we do use the phone authentication. And so that's as soon as they click on the link in the mail that they get, when they go to try to sign their document, DocuSign will do an automated call to their phone and to provide them with an access code. Otherwise, it really is us. It's really the user logging into their online account with us. Yeah.
Got time for maybe one more question? I've got one then, actually. You guys mentioned, I think both of you talked about the value of some of the services that DocuSign provides, and you guys then both specifically touched on CSAs. I'm curious what other, beyond the CSAs, TCSM for you guys? What other services you guys use?
If you, this is where I'm going to defer to these guys, because I don't work on the technical aspects as heavily as you do.
Sure. Keri, do you want to talk about the TCSM?
Yeah, so with the TCSM, it provides us, first of all, we get a contact who we can reach out to specifically to help us out with situations, or if we're having trouble, to kind of help debug and figure out what's going on, as well as the Premier support. So you can email them, and they'll do their best to get back to you as fast as they can. And then there's also a phone number you can call to, but I think they like when you initiate it via email, and that like tracks down. You make sure you have your account number and all the information you need, so they can start working on it and have that chain to follow.
Yeah, so I think that's really, from a support team, those are the two main things we take advantage of. CSAs, we did use professional services to get us going initially. Those are probably the three key things.
All right, well, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Next session, if you wouldn't mind, if you've got the app, thanks very much. If you've got the app downloaded, we'd love it if you would open it up and provide feedback. It'll help us improve for next year. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll hopefully see you at the closing keynote.